everyone, it's Jack from Cultaholic Wrestling, and God save the king, not Charles. I'm talking about Bad Bunny. Lots to talk about in this video, lots of big matches as well for WWE's first pay-per-view since WrestleMania, or premium live event, I should really say. We're going to talk about Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar, those two big women's title matches as well, and of course, Bad Bunny versus Damian Priest. So without any further ado, this is what happened at WWE Backlash 2023. First up, we have the Raw Women's Championship match with the champion Bianca Belair defending against the challenger Skye. Interestingly, in this match, there are clear boos for Bianca and cheers for Io, especially in the opening exchange with counters and reversals being greeted with a lot of yay and booing, but for the other way around, you know what I mean. Io works the arm early on, gets on top, and the crowd are very happy about it indeed. Then we get a big strike exchange with, again, huge cheers for Io. Because of the damage done to the arm, when Bianca presses Io above her head, she can only use one hand because the other one's sore. It makes sense, and it's a very impressive feat of strength from Bianca, as always, as we're used to by now. But when she slams Io down, it all goes a bit wrong, and Io seems to land directly on her face. Thankfully, she appears to be okay. Bianca goes for the 450, but Io reverses it with knees and then applies a submission with the assistance of Bianca's hair. But Bianca powers out, only to take an X Factor from Io. Yo, you dealing with the X Factor. I got everything I wanted and I'll never get that back. Io avoids the KOD and sends Bianca to the outside before nailing her with her huge moonsault. Io goes up top with a Frankensteiner attempt, but Bianca reverses that with an avalanche powerbomb for a very near fall as well. And now it's time for the other two members of Damage Control to get involved, distracting Bianca, which almost gets Io the win, but again, Bianca kicks out. The ref gets distracted by Bayley, which leads to Dakota Kai kicking Bianca through the ropes, but it doesn't lead to Io getting the win because Io goes up top to finish Bianca off, and Bayley is holding Bianca's braid down across the apron on the outside, but the referee sees it and stops her from doing so. This gives Bianca enough time to recover a bit on the canvas. She avoids the move from Io, nails the KOD, and retains the Raw Women's title. Will we see this miscommunication towards the end lead to friction between Io and Bayley? We'll have to wait and see. Backstage we go, where Bad Bunny is preparing himself in his locker room. But who's this at the door? Knocky knock. It's Rey Mysterio. But who's this with him? It's Savio Vega? Savio's there. Huge pop from the crowd. Bigger pop from us watching in the office, because I haven't seen Savio for a long time, and I'm glad he's there. And he presents Bad Bunny with a special kendo stick to use later on. Thank you, Savio. And thank you for just being there. The next match is Seth Rollins versus Omos. Where all my Homo sapiens at? Come on, guys. And by the way, I'm not being totally sarcastic there, because this was a very good showing from Omos, who did more in this match than I think I've ever seen him do before. And full credit as well to Seth, of course, for leading him through it. At the start, Rollins holds his pose for a long time with his eyes closed, the crowd singing his theme, so Omos takes advantage and boots his face off. Omos then dominates Rollins for pretty much the entire first half of the match. Seth's bumping all over the place for him, making him look really good. Omos grabs Seth's head and squeezes it like a ball. He then takes him to the outside, throws him back over the ropes, back into the ring. It's domination from Omos. He's also showing a lot more character and a lot more playfulness than usual. He's mocking the crowd, he's getting heat, he's doing a good job. Rollins fights his way bravely back into it like a good babyface. He goes for a big pedigree, but Omos is just too massive to be able to successfully execute the move. He backdrops out of it from his knees. Seth finally manages to hit a tornado DDT, I believe, and a big frog splash, but it only gets one. Rollins goes for the stomp, but Omos counters it by just having a really strong neck. He gets up, chokeslams Seth, but it's only good enough for two. MVP, who's been on the outside this whole time, of course, slides Omos' cane, but Seth stops that with a pair of stomps before Omos can even use it, and a super kick to MVP to knock him off the apron before pinning Omos. But again, it only gets two from a pair of stomps. What could possibly stop Omos? A stomp from the top rope? Yes, and it does. Seth wins, and Omos, I think, does himself proud. Next up, it's the US title triple threat with the champion Austin Theory defending against both Bobby Lashley and Bronson Reed. Lashley dominates early on, knocking Theory down at the opening bell and hitting a big delayed vertical suplex. But the two heels in the match turn the tables on him and seem to form a bit of an alliance between each other, but Bobby fights them both off, comes back and hits the spear on Theory. 1, 2, but Bronson pulls him out of the ring from the outside. Bronson then with a very impressive move, launching himself, springboarding backwards kind of, off the middle rope to the outside to land on Lashley. Bronson then goes up top, but Theory shakes the ropes to unbalance him. Alliance over. There's an A-Town down attempt from Theory, but Bobby counters it into the Hurt Lock. Theory then kicks off the top rope backwards into a pinning predicament, kind of like the Bret Hart reversal, but Bobby kicks out, but then is immediately splashed by Bronson Reed from the top. Again though, it only gets 2 because Theory breaks up the pinfall just in time. Reed goes up top again with a moonsault attempt to Theory, but misses. As he returns to his feet, Lashley runs in out of nowhere with a spear, but then Austin Theory throws Lashley out of the ring, pins Bronson, and steals one in heelish fashion. Austin Theory is still the US champion. I thought this was a pretty entertaining little match. I did enjoy it on the whole. It was quite short, it felt like, especially after Rollins versus Omos went longer than expected, but I think it was still quite an entertaining little sprint. Next up, it's the SmackDown Women's title match with Rhea Ripley defending against Zelina Vega. There's a huge ovation for Zelina's entrance. She comes out in Puerto Rican themed gear. She's very emotional. It's a really nice moment, and I'm thinking, oh God, what if Ripley just squashes her? Thankfully, because the crowd would have really turned on the show, I think, if that happened. But instead, they have a very competitive match. The most competitive Zelina Vega match I think I can ever remember. Certainly since she won Queen of the Ring, at least. But maybe even more than that tournament where the women's matches famously didn't really get enough time. They have an opening exchange. Then Vega gets a slipper from ringside. She's going to beat Rhea with it. No, just kidding. She just throws it at her from outside of the ring instead. That's because if she gets close to Rhea, she's probably going to get dominated, which does then happen. Rhea takes full control of the match. She's putting on submissions and trash talking the crowd simultaneously. Zelina's fighting back, but she can't really build up any momentum. Finally, she does start to hit the ropes and hit a series of clotheslines on Ripley, but she can't get her off her feet. She charges with one final big clothesline, but Rhea counters with a huge headbutt, taking down Zelina. She then hooks her up for the Riptide, but Vega counters it into a DDT. The crowd go wild. Zelina then hits the 619, heads up top, does the Eddie Guerrero shoulder shimmy, doesn't hit a frog splash, instead goes for a second rope Meteora, fair enough, I guess, and it only gets 2, but the crowd were really hot for this sequence. Zelina then tries to press the advantage, but Rhea boots her in the head, Riptide, 1, 2, 3, and predictably, I guess, but maybe given the crowd, it wasn't the most predictable Rhea victory, but she does win eventually, yes. Rhea leaves, she's taunting the crowd all the way up the ramp, but then back in the ring, Zelina gets a nice standing ovation. Good moment for her, despite not winning the belt. Next up, we have the San Juan street fight between Bad Bunny and Damian Priest. Obviously, Bad Bunny's entrance is huge. Everybody is absolutely buzzing to see him. He's clearly delighted to be there as well, but he's also ready. He came to play, specifically with a shopping cart full of weapons. That's so Raven. Priest is toying with Bad Bunny early on, slapping him in the face, but Bad Bunny slaps him back and hits a sit-out power slam, but only for 1. Priest gets back on top, goes for some sort of springboard or dive to the outside, but gets met with a chair thrown in his face. Bad Bunny then builds up a head of steam, heads up top, and nails his big crossbody to the outside. Back in the ring, we get kendo stick shots and a falcon arrow from Bad Bunny, but it only gets 2. Due to possibly Bad Bunny's dominance, Priest's like, well, I've had enough of this, and starts to leave, but he is just teasing us because Bad Bunny chases him with a trash can and gets it booted back in his face, and Priest laughs it up. They head all the way on top of some production crates now, way out in the crowd, and Priest hits, I say hits, he absolutely nails. They both do a really good job on this spot. He nails a falcon arrow off the crates through some tables below. It's hit about as perfectly as it could have been. Back at ringside, and obviously after that damage, Bad Bunny seems done, but Priest misses a kick and hits the ring post, and this is kind of the turning point of the match because he really hurts his leg. Bad Bunny mercilessly targets this leg, slamming it into the ring post, hitting it with a chair. In the ring, Priest begs off, apologizing to Bad Bunny. Bunny goes for one final shot on his leg with the chair, but obviously Priest goes back on his word, basically. He was just suckering Bad Bunny in and kicks him away with his good leg. Bad Bunny, though, hits a low blow, but he still can't put Priest away, and now it's time for outside interference. Here come the Judgment Day to ruin things, but here comes Rey Mysterio to save the day, but the numbers game is against him. Who, in Puerto Rico, could save the day, perhaps? Could it be Carlito, who comes out to a monstrous pop? We get all the Carlito greatest hits, the backstabber, the spitting of the apple, and they all spill out onto the ramp. And there's still one more cameo, and it's obviously our boy, Savio Vega, who leads the LWO out to take the fight to the Judgment Day, and they all brawl to the back. And by this point, the crowd's at absolute fever pitch. Back in the ring, Bad Bunny puts the figure 4 on Priest, but he gets out of it. But then Priest runs into a chair in the corner and falls victim to sliced bread number 2, but he still manages to kick out. But Bad Bunny has one more trick in his locker. It's the Canadian Destroyer. He nails it, makes the cover, and wins what honestly is a very entertaining match. It achieved everything it set out to do, and almost predictably, I guess, at this stage, it's another great performance from a celebrity in a wrestling match. Bad Bunny and Logan Paul, though, they're probably on a different level to like any other celebrity we've seen. The penultimate match of the night is the 6-man tag team match with Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens, and Riddle teaming up against the Bloodline, the Usos, and Solo Sikoa. Everyone has little exchanges to start with the faces taking control, but then Solo gets tagged in and the heels end up on top, very much so in fact, with Sami playing the face in peril for a long beatdown segment. So long that this almost started to feel quite house showy in a way, but all the drama came in the second half of the match. Finally, Riddle gets the hot tag and flies with a springboard floating bro, I guess, to the outside onto all 3 opponents. Back in the ring, though, he almost gets pinned with a super kick. A little bit later on, Kevin Owens is the legal man now and forces a miscommunication between the Usos, with one super kicking the other. Kev nails the pop-up powerbomb, but that also only gets 2. Sami gets the hot tag now and hits the blue thunder bomb, again only a near fall, but then he gets ganged up on by both Usos. He comes off the top, but gets hit with a double super kick for another near fall. Jay talks a lot of trash to Sami and wants to finish him off, but then Solo blind tags himself in. Jay then blind tags himself back in, and both men are really not happy with each other now. And Jay says, no, this is about me, Solo. You're getting a bit too big for your boots, aren't you? Well, he doesn't quite say it in those words. But anyway, Sami charges with a haluva kick. Jay ducks, and it knocks Solo off the apron. Sami almost pins Jay, but it gets broken up by Solo, who gets back in the ring, having shaken off that haluva kick very quickly. Normally, I'd be like, oh, should a wrestler be kind of not selling a finisher for very long? But it is Solo Sikoa. We've been conditioned to learn that he's actually very tough indeed. Solo thinks now about maybe attacking a downed Jay, but we don't find out whether he was really going to or not, because Riddle blindsides Solo and it starts a big breakdown segment where everyone runs in the ring and hits their big moves on each other. However, in the midst of all this, Jay turns Solo around and Solo instinctively grabs him, thinking he's an opponent, and goes to hit the Samoan spike. He pauses, realizes that it's Jay, and still thinks about hitting it, but again, we don't know whether he actually would have done because the others get involved. Eventually, the finish of the match comes with Riddle hitting his finisher on Jey Uso, but missing the fact that once again, Solo has blind tagged himself in. He nails the Samoan spike on Riddle and pins him for the win. The Bloodline have the victory, but there's still visible tension with Solo and Jay after the bell. Jimmy tries to play peacemaker, or peacekeeper, I suppose, and it seems to work for now. And finally, the main event of the night, Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar. Now, this one doesn't have any sort of no DQ stipulation, but Cody manages to get around that because he jumps Brock while Brock's walking around the ring making his entrance. Cody hits a dive from the inside of the ring to the outside and starts beating up Brock with weapons. Very clever. Brock gets the ring steps to the head and several chair shots and finally gets back in the ring, and the bell rings and the match starts properly, but Cody now has a real advantage. He then hits a pair of disaster kicks, goes for the Cody cutter, but Brock snatches him out of midair and hits the first German suplex of the bout. We then get the period that we're used to expecting in Brock matches of Brock domination, suplex after suplex. Cody looks done. At one point, Cody, I think in trying to avoid a German suplex, pulls the turnbuckle pad off and he gets launched into the crowd as he takes the suplex. Eventually though, and perhaps slightly predictably, Brock gets sent into the exposed turnbuckle, and maybe less predictably in this era of WWE, his head bursts open. There's blood everywhere. Although I guess if any superstar gets a pass when it comes to the red stuff in matches, it is Brock Lesnar. There's a lot as well, by the way, quite a lot of blood. Cody presses the advantage with an RKO, then another 2 disaster kicks, and a Cody cutter, and a crossroads, and a second crossroads. Like 7 moves in a row, and Brock kicks out. It was actually 6 moves in a row. I've just recounted them there, and I feel foolish. But then Brock manages to counter the crossroads into an F5, 1-2, but Cody kicks out. Brock then slaps on the Kimura, and Cody comes close to tapping out. It looks like he's about to tap. And then, using his own body weight as leverage, he manages to roll Brock backwards into a pinning predicament. Brock doesn't let go of the submission in time, doesn't get his shoulders off the mat, and Cody wins with some good old wrestling, guys. So yeah, not the most decisive win for Cody Rhodes. At least he doesn't lose, I suppose, after being really beaten up by Brock Lesnar on that Raw after WrestleMania. He does at least beat him, I guess, but Cody gets out of there quickly. He celebrates briefly on the outside, heads to the back, and the final image of the show is Brock Lesnar wiping the blood off himself with a towel in the middle of the ring, looking sort of annoyed, but probably also thinking of the fat paycheck that he's just made. So yeah, a decent main event. I don't want to sound too weird saying this. I think Bad Bunny should... This sounds really weird. Bad Bunny, the non-wrestler, maybe should have main evented this card full of actual wrestlers, because he was the most over person in the building, and his match was a boatload of fun. Not to take away from the other matches on the card, but that Bad Bunny match really was the centerpiece. But anyway, I think on the whole, despite some maybe quite predictable match results, I think Backlash was a positive one. The biggest strength of the show, unquestionably, was the crowd, who were unbelievable throughout. Excellent choice by WWE going to Puerto Rico for the show, and I would be so happy for them to go back every year. It was, yeah, the fans absolutely made it. But what did you think of Backlash 2023? Let me know in the comments section down below. Leave all your thoughts and opinions, match of the night, all that sort of stuff. And yeah, I'll see you next time. I've been Jack from Cultaholic. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you very soon.